Hi, my name's Louisa and welcome today. So the topic that we're going to be featuring is overload, overwhelm and burnout. It's something that is often talked about in relation to adults. And today I've got Elaine, who is going to be my guest and speaking about this. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much, Elaine, for coming and joining me today. Elaine is a therapist and she works and supports children and young people and their families. So, Elaine, I'm just going to hand over to you to say a few words and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Louisa. So yes, overload, stress and burnout are definitely on the increase for everybody, I think, with the demands of our modern lifestyles. And of course, the pandemic's made things so much worse for people as it's brought unprecedented levels of anxiety and stress on top of what was already sort of very busy and overloaded lives. A survey earlier this week from Good Morning Britain showed that 2/3 of parents who responded are finding this lockdown emotionally tougher than the previous one, as they struggle to balance working from home and the demands of homeschooling, with 1 in 10 feeling they want to cry every day. Of course, it isn't just parents who are struggling right now. A study published in The Lancet in January found that up to 10 million people in England are going to require new or additional mental health support as a result of the pandemic, with many people finding health, financial worries, job insecurity and isolation some of the hardest things to cope with.
Thank you. There's a lot of information there. So one of the things that I know personally, overload, they sound very similar, overload, overwhelm, and then left unkept, not dealt with, then that's when we kind of get to burnout. But one of the things that I find interesting when it comes to, it's definitely connected with mental health. It's not necessarily something that you can see. And I know for me, I've learned to recognize some of the different signs. So when you're not looking after yourself as much, so maybe you're not going to bed early, or for me personally, it's just like more chocolate gets bought. So it's kind of reaching for the sweet things. Or, I know that going for a walk and fresh air. So all the things that you know that would help you, or maybe that you do, you give and you nurture and you do for your children, or maybe for somebody that you're caring for, but it's like you go to the bottom of the pile. And our bodies and ourselves, we're amazing in terms of what we're able to cope with. And the body is supposed to be able to deal with a certain amount of stress and overwhelm. But it's when there's no recovery time and our nervous system is just constantly, there's a saber-toothed tiger. I know there's not a saber-toothed tiger, but it's like high alert. There's stuff, we can't get away from it. And so particularly the challenge is, how do I A, recognize those signs, B, what can I do about it? And just being able to either hear somebody talk about it, or go, yeah, oh, I've experienced that, or I haven't been sleeping, and be able to know, okay, where are the people that I can reach out to, I think is a huge, immense one. So I have different people that I can speak to depending on what the topic is. So there is no one person fits all. You really, it does help you to know, okay, who do I feel safe in going to, and who can I talk about this? And the reason that I wanted Elaine to kind of share with us and meet more is because for me, whilst health and well-being is a mainstream, I'm kind of Pilates, fitness, massage instructor. It's very seldom, and this is just my personal experience, have I heard it talked about in relation to children. And so whilst being able to relate your experience of when you've experienced burnout, and just things have to go pop sometimes, and it's not, for me, realistic to try and contain and hold everything. We're not built for that. You've got to allow things to be processed and expressed. It's got to get out. Otherwise, that's where we become ill and not well. So first of all, Elaine, it would be great if you can share any of experiences that you've had in relationship to the overload or overwhelm and burnout. And then also, as my expert in dealing with children and their families, it's, what are some of those signs and symptoms? Maybe people have children or work with children who are actually experiencing that. And depending on their age range, it's like, it may manifest. What are the different ways that it can manifest, so that we can begin to recognize and go, okay, how can I help that child, or even just start the conversation and bring their awareness to it. Lots of information. Over to you, Elaine.
Thank you. Going back to the beginning, when you were saying about, our own experiences of stress and burnout, I mean, my first sort of dalliance with all of that was my early days as a teacher, when sort of that first year of teaching, everything was new. The learning curve was vertical. I used to fall asleep at my desk at home in the evenings, literally. I caught every cough and cold going because I was run down. I was short-tempered and snappy with friends and family. And it was just so hard. And I used to find that every holiday I was ill. Short holiday, I was ill for all of it. Long holiday, you'd definitely have a week or two at the beginning when you were sort of super sick and exhausted and absolutely burnt out. You're just struggling to remember your name some days. And actually, it was only when my dad, who used to be a teacher, sort of pulled me to one side and gave me a strict talking to, that I really realised that in order to sort of survive the teaching game, I was going to have to look after myself a bit better. And one of the first things I did actually was discover Tai Chi, which I absolutely loved at that point. I'd like to say I'm so much better at handling it now. I'm not. But what I have got better is recognizing the early stages of being stressed and overloaded and managing that before it gets to the burnout now. So that's one of the things that I found that's helped me. And I guess as we get older and we reflect on ourselves and what we've learned, we get a lot more resilient, I suppose, over time. And there's a lot we can do to support that. I mean, for me, working wise, detailed planning, putting in clear boundaries, when I'm going to work, whether I'm going to return that email instantly or whether it can wait till tomorrow, all of those sorts of things really help me manage myself so that I can be better present for the people that I'm working with. And personally, for me, it's exercise, it's eating properly, it's getting enough sleep, all those sorts of basic sort of self-care, self-management things that really keep me in one piece.
Thank you. And I would also mirror that. I know for me, having gone through my own health concerns a few years ago, it's really learning. So for me, one of the big things, it's people can tell you about the different signs and symptoms, but actually knowing or having them on, like, okay, I can see it, it's written on my little sticky pad, so okay, there's a recognizing it. Sometimes you need somebody to just hold something up and go, okay, if it looks like this, then it is this. A horse is a horse. If you've seen 3 horses and people point you out a horse 3 times, it's like, then you need to take a moment and stop. And very often, especially now when things are busy, and it's very, very much a challenge to be in a routine, to be able to help yourself, kind of having those signs to be able to recognize what's going on. And also for me, the real challenge was it's like nothing brought me joy. I went through kind of C-section, fibroid, and I was kind of, apart from the physical recovery, then it was like literally within the year, skin cancer. That took a massive, oh my goodness, reality check. And I'm only still now like 5 years on, and I've been clear, which is fantastic, but I'm only just starting to rediscover what brings me joy. And that sounds like such a simple thing, but it's like I could, I love cooking, I love coloring, but I've had to re-find what are the things that bring you joy, whether it's going for a walk and being in nature. And definitely part of the first piece is, movement is key, but also changing your state. And what is it that you need to just physically get out of those 4 walls, or just change your state, and just helping and assisting other people. So getting out from underneath your own stuff. That's something that I know I've had to work on, and I've had help from different people to be able to do that. As an adult, you can have friends that you can talk to, but as a child, it's not necessarily easy. Again, I don't know, to be able to, how do you recognize, or how do you even express it's not right?
I think it's really hard for children to express it's not right. Children don't have the emotional literacy that they need a lot of the time to explain how they feel. And that's not their fault. That's not a shortcoming in them or their parents. It's just they haven't got the neurodevelopment to be able to link that bit of their brain up. Teenagers too, and actually, let's be honest, quite a lot of adults struggle with emotional literacy as well. So it's really hard to explain something that you're feeling inside that you can't put into words. So for children, it often comes out in big feelings. It comes out often in anger, because that's a very safe emotion to express. Everybody understands anger, but actually quite often there are big feelings underlying that anger. And when you unpick that with a child, they're not actually angry at all, they're sad. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of the clients that I'm working with, both the younger ones right through into the teens, is that there is a lot of big behavior going on that's actually them trying to communicate they're in a state of distress. And it's almost like, I'm feeling really bad. I haven't got the words to tell you, mum, dad, carer, key adult, that I'm feeling really bad. So I'm going to show you. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to try and make you feel as bad as I feel so that you understand where I'm coming from. So that's kind of what often goes on for kids and teens. But what happens is, of course, as the adult observing that, you see the behavior and you react to the behavior, not to the emotion that's actually underlying it all, which is where we need to be with that child or that teen. And sitting with that can be very uncomfortable as an adult.
Thank you. And I think the other thing with regards to recognizing, so we're very good to recognize and actually being able to cope, I think, as an adult. One of the things that I love is not only do you work with children, it's specifically, you can't just deal with working a child. Having come from a teaching background in school as well, it's like the child is just a product of their own experiences, and then it's the different environments. So whether that's a home environment, school environment, and they all have to go back to those different environments. And so how things are managed is important, and actually having the skill set, or even being able to go, I don't know how to deal with I can see the explosive behavior, it's happening, it's kind of 24/7, I've not got a break from it, especially at the moment in the pandemic. It's like, I'm stressed and overwhelmed, so I know that I'm short-tempered, I'm not dealing with it as I usually do, because I've also got my overwhelm at work. And so in those circumstances, it's like, and the uncertainty of, we've still no clear narrative of kind of what's going to happen. How can we assist and support people? How do you assist and support people?
I think when you're working with children and teens, you're never just working with them in isolation. And a lot of what I do as a family therapist involves bringing in the whole aspects of the family and working with everybody. Because as a parent, what you're managing, you don't share everything with your children, but you might be worried about the mortgage, you might be worried about your job, you might be worried about somebody who's sick. There are all sorts of things that are going on for you that you may not choose to communicate to your child, but it's taking up emotional energy for you and time for you, and it will impact on how you interact with your child. How much patience you've got and how much tolerance you've got. We're all sort of up here full of life, and then we've got the pandemic as well, so it doesn't take very much to kind of take us over the edge, and that's adults and kids and teens as well. So it's, I think, recognizing as much as anything as a parent and as an adult that actually you've got stuff going on, and giving yourself grace, giving yourself time, looking after yourself and managing yourself well, because only in doing that will you be able to be there for a child or a teen that needs you. So really, really, really managing your own things first. So it's much like the Titanic and life jackets, really. You've got to put one on before you can help somebody else. It's not a lot different right now. And with kids and teens, it's recognizing that actually they're having a hard time too. You know, we like to think that as adults we carry everything so that the children don't have to, but actually it rubs off. And, you know, they are going to be very impacted by how we feel. And it's acknowledging that and giving them space and time to talk about what's important to them, because they hear things and they see things. And just because we think they're not worried doesn't mean they're not. You know, they might be deeply, deeply concerned about granny dying and not want to share that with us because they don't want to upset us. So they're carrying all of this stuff on their own. And actually what they need is space and time to unpick that. And for you as the adult to go, yeah, you know, I'm really worried about that too. So I wonder what it is we can do to manage that, and how can we make, you know, things feel a bit better for everybody. And just that open line of communication, really.
Thank you. And space and time. Definitely, I would reiterate having that space. So just giving yourself, if you can start with yourself as the adult or the caretaker, and just give yourself that permission that it's okay to just take, whether it's that 2 minutes that extra time you spend in the bathroom, sit on the toilet, or wherever it is, you know, have that bath so that you actually have that breathing space to just check in and go, okay, what's going on? And then from there, okay, that's an opportunity to regroup. And also, when you give yourself permission, then it's also demonstrating and showing that there is a solution, there is opportunities, but space needs to be created for this. And definitely, I know and remember as a child and even into my teens that I was very, very clued in with what was going on, but didn't actually necessarily have the confidence to be able to voice or even know. I think it's not just a question of voicing what's going on with you. It's really being able to understand and know, what is my opinion? How do I feel? How do I even figure that out? And I think kind of having different tools and ways to kind of get to, well, what is me? How do I feel? What is my opinion? Is a really great avenue, is a really great place to start with. And I know that in terms of the way that you work, it's not just a case of sit down and chat.
No, not at all.
Many different, you should see, many different practical tasks and activities that you can get in with. So it's, you know, if somebody can't verbally express it, what are some of the different tools and strategies and things that you can use to just be able to help people?
I think actually so much communication is not verbal. And sometimes as adults, we get hung up on the talking bit. And it's not a child's first language. A child's first language is play. You know, a child who's having a hard day doesn't sit down and say, you know, mummy, daddy, auntie Beth, I'm having a hard time. Let me tell you about it. They say, come and play with me. And children will show you what it is that they're struggling with and how they're struggling. And actually, as adults, we've got to be open to getting down on the floor with them and joining in their play at their level, you know, particularly with the young ones, and working through what it is that they're needing to work through. And I've done quite a lot that's on my website about sort of repetitive play and things like that. But it's, you know, repetitive play is key with children. They're trying things over and over again because they are embedding what they need to embed. They're looking at different ways of being, different ways of doing things. They're trying out different solutions. You know, as a parent, it is really exhausting playing tea parties for the 27th time that morning when you've got to hop on a Zoom call for work. But sometimes it's really what's needed, and it is making time for that. And with the older sort of teens, it's not so much about fixing, it's about coming alongside and doing things with them. They are very good at, again, showing you what they need you to know if you listen and if you come alongside. If you come opposite, for a teen, it's almost confrontational. Coming alongside is supportive. And that's why kids talk in the car. and teens talk in the car. It's why, you know, as a generation that grew up without a dishwasher, you know, we used to talk at the kitchen sink, because you're alongside, your hands are busy and you're talking, and it kind of connects both sides of your brain. You're not being looked at, you're not feeling scrutinized, and because of that, you can be honest. So for teens, you know, get them out of the car, go for a walk the dog, you know, go for a walk if you haven't got a dog, but come alongside, you know, would be my tip.
Thank you very much for that. And so the other question, in terms of, we spoke right at the start about some of the common signs or symptoms in terms of behavior habits that we may know that we do as an adult. In terms of burns of kind of overwhelm or burnout, what are some of the signs and symptoms that you see in children and teens? Apart from, I know you've spoken about the big emotions.
Yeah, I think there's lots, and the trouble is that so many things can be so many things. You know, it's a bit going back to your horses analogy. Are you looking for horses or are you looking for zebras? Well, you know, here, if you hear hoofbeats, look for horses, not for zebras. And there are so many issues. I'll just list some of them here for you, but actually I'd like to sort of preface it with, if you're concerned at all, you know, check things out with your GP, because actually there could be a physical or a mental reason for a child's underlying issues that they can help support you with, and it may be something really, really simple. So don't forget just checking things out. So things like constant fatigue, you know, where's the boundary, you know, with the pandemic between sort of teens staying up at night to game and a child that's struggling with fatigue. You know, it can be really, really hard to tell. Weight loss or weight gain, you know, some of us have all put on a bit of a pandemic poundage, but it's looking for things that are marked rather than gradual. Self-harm, bedwetting's another one, particularly with little ones. Being disinterested in things they were previously interested in, particularly in sort of academics and grades dropping, although obviously with homeschooling that's all a bit more challenging to look at right now. Not interested in things that they were previously interested in, you know, particularly sort of activities that they would have enjoyed before. Reduced engagement with people, not wanting to interact, not wanting to talk to friends on Zoom, not wanting to catch up with family. Physical ailments being reported. Stomach aches and headaches are usually a big sign of stress. But of course, if you're not out and you're not moving and you're not doing things, that can have an impact on things like that too. Isolation's a big issue, you know, particularly with teens shutting themselves away in their rooms. And then there's other things that might be going on that are contributing to that you don't as an adult you don't have a handle on. You know, cyberbullying, how do we know if that's going on for our children? You know, are they being coerced into things that they don't feel comfortable with? You know, when we're not in a lockdown situation, is it face-to-face bullying? And then you've got children who are already dealing with things above and beyond before any of this even started. You know, have they got additional needs? Have they got learning needs? You know, have they got physical disabilities? Have they already got poor mental health? You know, are they already struggling with things like substance abuse? You know, children who are not neurotypical have to work really, really, really hard in a learning environment, far harder than a child who's neurotypical. So they are going to be working so much harder, they're going to be so much tireder, they're going to be so much more overwhelmed, that they are going to be particularly at risk of burnout and stress.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So having a balanced, food and nutrition. So whatever, think of it, a way that I like to think of things is the type of environment. So less stress and burnout just as an adult and as a child. It's like, what is the environment that is happening on inside my body? So whether I put it on my body, or definitely whatever you put in your body does have an impact. So the nervous system is operating in so many ways. We have our kind of conscious nervous system, which is all of our common senses. and then you have your autonomic nervous system, which is, it's like your silent radar that is always on, and it's just like pulsing, just like my hands like that, to just go, you know, is it safe? Am I in a safe environment? And can I feel calm, or is there just so much going on? That's where, again, creating that a peaceful, calm space, clearing the space is really helpful, or being out, you know, in nature. Nature is definitely very calming. Lots of grey and wet doesn't help, especially in the second lockdown and the first one where we had so much delicious sunshine. It was much easier to kind of cope with what else was going along, but definitely if you've already got things like the sand and the winter conditions, then it is much more of a challenge. So it may be, okay, I need to take extra breaks in the time to be able to do that. And monitoring, you know, the different types of food. What is it that you can put into your body, or how can you change the environment around for you and them to actually then give yourself that buffer zone. It's like, as you were saying before, that the overwhelm. It's like you have this shows my age. I remember Ready Break Man, which was this, you saw this person of the body with like an orange glow. So if you think it's like I can deal with it here in the physical, then I have my little kind of like zone around me that if anything becomes too much, then I can kind of just take, that's my buffer zone. It provides that extra support. And people are either like creeping to the edge, the buffer zone is either full, or it's just like I've used up any excess of my buffer zone. My Ready Break glow there is no glow. And so, you know, great if you've managed to recognize some of that. So it's like, that's the first step, is stopping to take the time and assessing, okay, what is happening for me? Okay, now I deal with me first, again, like you were saying with the oxygen masks and things. Then from there, okay, now I can look out wider afield to my family and my children. How can I, you know, use play or creating that time, whether it's once a day or in my work schedule? And I think the thing that's quite fantastic at the moment, hopefully, it may not be the experience for everybody, but because we're in the current situation, it's like whether it's work or bosses, there has to be a little bit more give and take. People are having to pay attention because it is extraordinary. And so reaching out for people like yourself, how would they do that to be able to find other, you know, support and help?
There is a lot of support and help out there. I could talk for ages, but probably the easiest thing to do is to just say that I will write a PDF booklet with loads of go-tos that you can access and just save a bit of time and repetition going on there. But, you know, your GP, again, is a great source of support. CAMs are superb. They are overwhelmed at the minute, which is sort of meaning that people like me who are private therapists are being called on quite a lot. But, you know, I will signpost a whole load of that for you in a document that you can download so that I don't go on endlessly.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. And for those people who don't know what CAMS stands for?
Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. So it's the part of the NHS that your GP would signpost you to if they felt it was appropriate to get some help and support for a child or a teen.
Lovely. And then the other question before we kind of round things up is, do you find working with families and children that often there's a stigma or a challenge as a parent or a key worker or a caretaker to, I'm supposed to be able to be this person who can manage and cope and be able to, you know, bring my child up really well and not have to look outside for help, or to be able to go, something's not right, I can't deal with it myself.
Yeah.
What do you find in that respect?
I think you're right. I think people are becoming more open to asking for support and help, whereas previously they wouldn't have done. But for some people, it's a really, really hard thing to do. And, you know, for those of you who are trying to be amazing parents, can, you know, just remind yourself that actually there's a lot of research that good enough parenting is okay. You know, you don't have to be present for your child 100% of the time. You do not have to have a packed agenda of amazing things to do. You know, boredom is a great tool for kids because that's when they engage in their own creative play and do amazing things. And so not being there, fulfilling every need, every moment of every day, all the time is actually okay. And Winnicott was a psychologist and did loads of research years ago. And actually, you don't even have to be a good enough parent half the time in order to be a successful parent. So if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, burnt out, just hang on to that good enough most of the times, or even some of the time, is okay.
Lovely. And then I would just really also say is moment by moment. Old-fashioned saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's like you can only do what you can do. And if you've got children and you know that they're trying to do their homework, or the thing that you would say, or what I often hear is, you know, as long as you do your best, it's like nobody can ask more than the best. And your best will change. As an instructor and as a teacher, it's like I'm at the front, helping, assisting, supporting. My best will change. You know, I will always give of my best, but everybody knows it's like I won't fake it. If I haven't got it, you'll probably tell by my face. It's kind of like written all over it. But you can trust that whatever is in there that I can kind of manage, I will manage. And again, the same I would say for your kids, you know, as long as you can encourage them, you know, notice what is it that's going really well, just as it's important to acknowledge to ourselves, I've done this, you know, there might be all of this that I'm not sure about, but actually I've done this well. And actually reinforcing that positive of what you have achieved. Look at what we've managed in the time that we've had or on that day. And so I would say if there were going to be 3 things, you can go a little bit more, 4 if you want to. So what would be the 3 things, 3 or 4 things to take away or to remember, to give people some kind of hope and bolster, apart from the PDF, which we'll send some more information and I'll give some of that on the video at the ends, as well as details on how to contact Elaine.
I think one of the first things is actually being open to understanding that your child actually might be having a really hard time right now, and for that to be okay. And because sometimes as adults, it's really difficult to acknowledge that a child that we're parents of or caring for or looking after is having a problem, because it makes us sometimes feel like we're falling short. And actually, it's not about us. And it's okay that they are, to acknowledge that they're having a hard time. It's not okay that they are having a hard time, but it's okay to acknowledge that that's going on. And then it's looking really about how you manage that next with, you know, lots of sympathy and realistic guidelines and modeling good behavior, you know, teaching your child or the child that you're with about how to manage stress by acknowledging, actually, you know, I'm stressed too, and you know, when I feel overwhelmed, this is what I do about it, and this what works for me. I wonder whether, you know, this might work for you, or whether some other things that I've got tucked up my sleeve to talk about might help. So through modeling how you manage, you're going to equip that child or that teen with skills to develop their resilience. And that's probably a really, really important thing to do, is just to really support them in what they need to do to cope. Keep talking. You know, it is hard, particularly with teens when they don't want to, but just keep talking, keep it realistic. And obviously, if you're having a hard time, get some support for yourself as well, because you can't support somebody else if you're not supported.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. So I hope that we've managed to provide some insight there for yourself. And please do feel free to reach out for yourself, or it may be actually that you know of somebody. So whether it's yourself, whether it's a friend with kids, there's always an opportunity. Share the video with them, or please do feel free. As Elaine said, she's going to have a PDF to download. So please do share and again, keep those communicational channels open. I'd like to say again, thank you very much, Elaine, for spending the time today and giving us some of your wisdom and your knowledge.
Been an absolute pleasure, Zoe, so thanks ever so much.